call on the ice stands. We gotta go!
Up the colors. We are set to go.
Let's roll, boys! Come on, let's get going!
We are kicking.
Here we go! Both guys, 5 minutes each for fighting! Watch the blue! Play the puck! We're not doing this! Hey!
After further review, it's the Scouting the Refs podcast.
Yeah, baby!
Here's your hosts, Todd Lewis and Josh Smith.
Okay, gentlemen, play ball!
Let's go!
All right, guys, let's drop the puck.
Time for another edition. The weather outside is frightful, but the calls are so delightful. How's that for a festive start, John?
Well, I think it depends on which coaches you ask, because some have found the officiating to be pretty frightful this time of year.
I can't understand why. Isn't it always just running so smoothly? Everybody agrees with everything as it comes down from whether it's the referees or the situation room. Everybody just always agrees, and we all come together. It's a warm and wonderful time of year, don't you think?
You know what? If they gifted us with some better explanations, maybe people would agree.
Oh, I liked how you teased that there. This is the Scouting the Refs podcast. You will find Josh on all the social channels: X, Instagram, Threads, Blue Sky, TikTok. He's at Scouting the Refs. I'm on many of these same platforms at Todd Lewis Sports. On this week's episode, illegal checks, nasty checks, paying the price, where's the puck? And it happened again. Oh, we'll leave that one for a couple of minutes. Let's go to the PWHL, because there were a couple of incidents in this league that I wanted to touch on, because the rules don't exactly mirror the National Hockey League, and we're pleased that the PWHL is becoming more and more popular and more people are consuming that content. And they announced on Friday that Minnesota Frost defender Maggie Flaherty has been suspended for 2 games for an illegal check to the head of Boston forward Alina Muller. Josh, can you take us through, first of all, how the differences in the rules are from the PWHL to the NHL? Sure.
Yeah, it's funny because the PWHL leveraged heavily the NHL rulebook, which also leans heavily into what we see at the AHL and ECHL level. So there's a lot of overlap there. There's a lot of similar structure in how they've framed the rules and how they've put them in order and how they're looking at them. So there's a lot of things that are very similar, which makes it easier for the officials that are looking to work in both leagues or across different leagues. So anytime we have stuff like that, it helps the officials, which is a lovely thing to have. So you've got that in the PWHL. You definitely have officials that are working in that league, that are working elsewhere. So the more we can have consistency, the better. And some of it's the same. When they're looking at, under Rule 48, illegal check to the head, same rule as it is in the National Hockey League, in determining whether the contact was avoidable, or I should start with the rule itself, that a hit resulting in contact with the opponent's head, where the head was the main point of contact and such contact to the head was avoidable, is not permitted. Boom. Same wording as the NHL rulebook. And they do consider whether or not the head was picked. Did the player attempt to hit squarely through the opponent's body, or was it picked as a result of poor timing, poor angle of approach, unnecessary extension of the body upward or outward? That's the criteria that they're looking at in the PWHL. They're not necessarily considering some of the other NHL nuances around, did the player's body positioning prior to the hit contribute to this, those types of things. So it's really that. Did the player try to hit the head? Or was there a pick on this play? And that's what they're defining it on. And it's because the checking rules are a little bit different. So we're not looking at where we've got a legal check that was an illegal check to the head on a legal body check. Those types of things are considered much differently because of the checking rules in the PWHL. If there's unavoidable contact, it's a major penalty. So it's pretty straightforward there. And much like in the National Hockey League, they're going to a review and they're deciding, do we want to keep this as a major penalty? Do we want to reduce this to a minor penalty if it was accidental? And this, in the review part of it, is where the NHL rulebook comes in, because during the review, they'll look at it closely. They'll look at it in slow motion. They'll look at it from multiple angles. And that's where they'll determine, did the opponent put herself in a vulnerable position that made head contact on an otherwise full body check unavoidable, or material changed the position of her body or head immediately prior to or simultaneously with the hit. So it's an interesting separation there, that happens during the review, but not during the call on the ice. You basically set it up that if there's head contact, you're getting a major penalty and you're getting a review out of it. And that's when the additional criteria come into play.
I wonder if this is something that the NHL should consider too, as a slight adjustment, is that you're immediately getting a major. It allows the officials to review, because so often we will hear is that, well, if they call it a major, they can review it. Why don't we automatically do that?
I mean, that's more or less what we're seeing. How it's being implemented in the NHL today is that more often than not, if there's a major penalty, if there's head contact, they are calling the major penalty and then they're taking that second look. So I think codifying it in the rule book and putting it in there as the specific way to approach it might make it a little bit more consistent, but it looks like it's happening that way already, Todd.
Codifying is going to be our word of the week. Another incident in the PWHL. This one from Boston, Susan Tapani penalized for, I'd call this a dirty hit on New York's Sara Fillier. She's completing a shift, heading to the bench, and, well, you could say that Tapani is helping her into the bench, but she shoves her from behind and sends her crashing into the gate. They looked at it, they reviewed it. It was decided that it was a 2-minute penalty. I could see this being a major penalty, but to get to a roughing penalty, you have to have certain specific criteria, and I guess it didn't fall into class here. I
hate the way roughing penalties are used. If we're going to call roughing, and this applies to the NHL, this applies to the PWHL, everywhere else. If we're going to call roughing, we need to call what the rule is, or we need to change the rule. Roughing under both rule books, all four, AHL, ECHL, NHL, PWHL, is a punching or slamming motion with or without the glove, normally directed at the head or the face of an opponent. That's roughing. That's not what happened here. That's not what happens on most roughing type plays. So I don't understand why we insist on calling what is probably better bucketed as unsportsmanlike conduct, or in some cases interference. It's not roughing. And this was not roughing. This is interference. You're hitting a player who's not in possession of the puck. It fits nicely under the interference rule. 57-2, imposed on a player who interferes or impedes the progress of an opponent who's not in possession of the puck. That's absolutely what happened on this play. She's not in possession of the puck. She's going to the bench. It's not a particularly hard or violent check, but 57-4 lets you upgrade that interference to a major penalty if it's based on degree of violence. I think what gets me, Todd, is the hit itself isn't, but the location and timing of the hit to hit her into the open bench door. It's a very dangerous play. Like you said, it's dirty because you've got, you're not expecting a hit at that time. And on top of that, it's not a hit into the boards. So you're not bracing for impact, and then you're getting hit into a very awkward location where you've got the door open, you've got the corner of the bench door there, the door is ajar, there's players on the bench. It's a dangerous spot and time to hit an opponent. So I don't think I can justify the major penalty, but it does feel like it should be more than a minor. You know, maybe the minor for interference and just tack on 2 for unsportsmanlike because of it.
Well, something, yeah, because this deserved to be more than a 2-minute minor penalty. I would agree. So, okay, we'll leave that for further review. Josh Norris of the Ottawa Senators has been reviewed and has been deemed to need to pay $2,000 for embellishment. He was issued a warning in a game against the New York Islanders in November. His second citation, which triggers the fine, comes from an incident in a game against the Detroit Red Wings earlier in the month. Norris is pursuing the puck. He's obstructed by a Detroit Red Wings player and then does the fancy high diving act to wind up drawing the call. And yeah, I can see why this got the league's attention.
Absolutely. This is one of those ones where I'm glad that Hockey Operations operates the way that they do, because he grabs hold of the opposing player's arm, tucks it in with the good old chicken wing there of grabbing the arm, tucking it under himself, and then flopping down to the ice. And his sleight of hand fooled referee Steve Kazari, who issued a minor penalty on the play. They end up with a power play from that. Marco Kasper goes to the box for 2 minutes. And you can fool Steve Kazari, but you can't fool Hockey Operations, who came back and tagged this properly as a dive. So this one was well-deserved on Norris. I really, Todd, don't like these kinds of plays. I don't know that $2,000 makes a big difference, but I'm hoping that the embarrassment does, because seeing this, when you see guys grab onto a hand or a stick and then flop to the ice hoping to get a call, it's often successful. And it's something that, to me, really, it takes away from the game. I'd hate to see guys doing this and trying to draw the calls. So good for Hockey Operations for some public humiliation out there for Josh Norris.
I don't know. I don't know if it helps or whatever, because I think players will generally do whatever it takes to win. That's the hockey player mantra, so to speak. So I don't know that a little embarrassment for a brief moment is necessarily going to change behavior.
Probably not. $2,000 definitely isn't. And like you said, if you ain't cheating, you ain't trying. And these guys are trying every night.
Everybody's favorite quote machine, John Tortorella, had a few things to say about diving in a game after with the Boston Bruins. Let's read John's comments. Let me start. One thing I teach my team to do is not dive. Maybe I should start teaching them that. The way this has gone here, maybe I should teach them to dive. Flyers got dinged for a couple of tripping penalties. Neither of them led to goals, but I'm not going to go too far into it. That's one of the things we need to talk about as a team, but we've got to play an honest game. There's no cheating. There's no embarrassing referees. You don't embarrass referees. Yeah, okay, that sounds all nice and well and good from John Tortorella. But again, players will do whatever it takes to win. And you can say that you tell your guys not to dive, but once they get out on the ice, they're of their own vices, and sometimes it happens.
Right. And I'm sure Tortorella wants them to draw penalties. So where's the line on diving or embellishing or trying to draw a penalty? Because I'm sure he'll be complaining if his guys aren't working hard enough to start drawing those calls. And when you want to draw those calls, maybe you go down a little bit easier. So I can appreciate where Torts is coming from. I think hockey ops is the one we've got to rely on to try to catch the folks doing it. But even then, some guys are really good at it. And sometimes it's easy to disguise what's happening. So I don't know, Torts. I appreciate playing the game. Honestly, I really think he's in the right place there. But if he wants to start enforcing it and start issuing locker room fines to guys he thinks are diving on the ice, go for it. I just picture this being like a Cobra Kai dojo move where he's got guys and they're just going to start diving and practicing dives all day long. No,
yeah,
no swimming. He's got a big diving board in his backyard and no swimming pool, so they can just toughen up while they do it.
I'm waiting for that drill during training camp. Can't you see it now? Everybody, okay, and so red line, blue line, except you dive at each instead of stopping. I can see it now.
They're doing laps, and when Torts blows the whistle, everybody flops.
All right. This happened a couple of weeks ago, and it's happened again. I can't believe it. A first NHL goal was taken away after video review. This time it was Nashville's Adam Wilsby. Potted what he thought was his first NHL goal against the Dallas Stars. Hooray! Celebrations ensued. However, the Stars video crew is on the job. They said, hey, you want to challenge this one for a missed offside? Turns out Wilsby preceded the puck into the zone. Never mind. You got to give that puck back. It's not a souvenir anymore. We're using it again.
You know, it's heartbreaking. And once again, we get to the spot where this is why the challenges exist. We want to get the calls right. They did get the call right. The only thing, look, it doesn't make Wilsby feel any better, but at least it's not on his teammates, since it was Wilsby himself who preceded the puck into the offensive zone. At least if you're going to lose the goal for an offside challenge, at least him being the guy who went offside keeps his teammates from feeling that guilt of taking away that first goal.
Yeah, fair enough. He's buying dinner, not somebody else on this in this particular case. Let's get to a game situation. I was watching this game between the Ottawa Senators and the Anaheim Ducks. The Sens had themselves a pretty good game versus the Ducks this past week. But on one of their goals scored, I saw this as a huge missed opportunity for both the television broadcast and for the league, quite frankly. The shot comes into goaltender John Gibson, who's doing the snow angel on the ice and trying to cover it up and keep the puck ahead of the goal line. Once the play settles down, it looks like the puck has slid underneath Gibson, but he is across the line. He does the little bum scooch to get ahead of the line before he gives the puck back to the officials. And it looks like the puck is in. You don't see it in the initial broadcast. They decide we're going to go check on it in video review. And that's fine. It is ruled a goal. But at no time on the TV broadcast do we see a shot of the puck across the line definitively. And the entire situation review reads like this on the NHL website. Quote, the situation room informed the officials that Drake Batherson's shot completely crossed the Anaheim goal line. Period. That's it. That's all. Nothing further. This is a terrible missed opportunity.
So, like every other goal scored ever in National Hockey League history, the puck completely crossed the line. That's it. That's the explanation we get.
That's not really an explanation. At least it isn't to me.
Gee, thanks, guys. The requirement of scoring a goal was met here. I mean, it's terrible. And I'll start, Todd, with the disappointment with the broadcast teams. I mean, we've got replays. We've got everything available. There's overhead cameras. There's cameras in the crossbar. So somebody dropped the ball here. I don't know, the Sens broadcast team, the Ducks broadcast team, the NHL providing video from those overhead cameras or the crossbar camera. I don't know where it was, but we have video. Video exists. And, it came out later on, which lets us break down the play and take a look at it. And it does appear that they got the call right. This was a legal goal. You can see, thankfully, for the orange pants that Gibson's wearing in those Ducks unis, you can clearly see where the black of the puck is. Nice contrast there, boys. Good job. Thanks for making it easy on the Situation Room, because you can see that the puck is over the goal line when Gibson is flat on his back. He scooches out. He tries to get it back over the line, but we can see while the play was live that the puck is in the net. The good thing for me is at least they got the call right. But when you have a review, I can't fathom, Todd, how you get away with not having an explanation or not showing that replay to everybody, because it kind of starts to take away the trust or the understanding. I mean, people are always questioning every coach's challenge, every Situation Room review, or they're skeptical of how they get there in the first place. So to have absolute evidential video to show that the puck is in and you don't show it, I can absolutely understand the frustration here. It's baffling to me that they didn't have that available for the broadcast team.
Yes, absolutely. Here's an opportunity to show that, yes, we're doing it right. We got it right. The system works and everything is in place as it should be. I guess we'll defer. And, just because I can, I'll mention it again. If we had puck tracking, that would make things a lot easier in this case, don't you think?
Oh, it absolutely would. I mean, just thinking of the things that'll happen there. Look, we had way back in the day, we had goal judges sitting behind the goal in that little tiny telephone booth shaped glass box with a buzzer in their hand, like Jeopardy contestants, waiting for the puck to go in so they could hit the buzzer. And most of these were older fellas, maybe former referees or former officials, and loving that front row seat, waiting for their chance to do it. I remember tons of times when the puck didn't cross the line on a shot, and you'd see them hitting the button. They thought it went in. And look, we've upgraded over the years. We have improved the technology. We have a better view. We have camera angles that show overhead so that the guy who's no longer behind the net, but now elsewhere in the building, can look and see that the puck went in. Those are all great. But we don't even need to have that with puck tracking. Knowing that the puck went in, having a definitive calculated result, something that we can say without question that the puck crossed the goal line. And when it does, let the lights go off, let the red light go on, shoot fireworks, blow the horn, do all that stuff. If we know it went in, it's great. We don't have to worry about reviewing that stuff. We can get rid of some of those reviews. I mean, we'll still have coaches' challenges for things, but those goal line reviews, those questions of whether or not the puck went in, would be a thing of the past.
We can dream, can't we? We can dream. Yes.
I'm adding that to my Christmas list.
That's right.
Not this year, but someday.
I don't see it happening in time for Christmas this year. One other item I wanted to touch on involves an NHL mailbag from The Score. I caught it on the website, or probably available in the app as well. A lot of good questions, a lot of the usual questions, some good stuff. How do they schedule the officials? How much do referees and lines persons make, and that kind of thing? So, of course, why don't we go to the real source for this sort of information? There's a lot of great info available on the scoutingtherest.com website. But Josh, give us a little taste and a look into what the officials' life is like on the road, from traveling and schedules to compensation for these guys.
Yeah, these guys are on the road quite a bit, usually 20 plus days a month. So you've got travel after travel after travel. You're going rarely back to back, sometimes back to back, depending on the locations of the cities, but you're usually going from one place to your next job to your next job. It's flight after flight. You are traveling solo. These guys do not work together in teams. So you'll have the crew at one game in, say, Philadelphia, and the next night, one of them's working at Madison Square Garden, one of them's on Long Island, one of them's in DC, and one of them's got the night off because he'll be working the following night in Florida. So that's the types of things that you'll see. These guys get some time home, but not nearly as much as they'd like. So you're traveling most of the month, and getting those few days at home, getting the break now and then is very welcomed. Very tough, especially around the holidays, because there's so much action going on, which is part of the reason that it's nice to have the NHL shut down around Christmas. Not only does it give the players a break to be with their families, but the officials as well, because these guys are traveling nonstop. They don't have home games, so it's not like half the season they're at home. They've got a home game. They can be with their family. They're on the road, so you're not getting that luxury that the players have. It's not an easy life. It's a lot of solo travel. It's a lot of solo getting yourself to the place. You're meeting up with your crew the morning of. You'll have a meal together, rest up before the game, but it's a lot of travel. So as you're waiting in the airport over the holidays or going to visit family, just remember these guys are doing this 20 plus days out of the month.
And they do their own laundry.
They do their own laundry, and sometimes they have issues with their laundry, which is why on the rare chance you might see a ref number 35 or a linesman number 85, sometimes their luggage was lost. Sometimes it's still in the wash. I can think of one veteran official who, after the game, he didn't trust the teams to help him with his laundry, so he would take all his gear, pack it into his bag, head back to the hotel, wash it in the sink, and leave it to dry in the shower. So, hey, you got to do what you got to do. But for your other question, Todd, as far as the salaries and the pay, they're doing pretty well for themselves. They have a collective bargaining agreement with the National Hockey League, much like the players do. And we look at making six figures years back to now, guys are, close to 200, 400,000 plus for the referees. The higher guys, there's a sliding scale, so it increases based on your tenure with the league. So you're looking at guys nearing the $500,000 mark, and linesmen probably, or linespersons, I should say, probably around half that. But this is all negotiated in the CBA, so it's a set salary structure, and that's what they're getting based on their tenure with the league. And if they want to earn more, there's no overtime for officials during the regular season. But if they work over a certain amount of games, they can pick up some extra pay. And if they make the playoffs, they'll get an extra paycheck for each round worked. So when folks talk about accountability for officials, a big chunk of that comes with that, I'll call it a year-end bonus, because the better your performance in the regular season, the more likely you are to get selected to work the playoffs, and the more likely you are to advance each round. And that ends up being a pretty substantial payout.
And that's the way it should be.
Good stuff, man. Way to work.
Get in the box. It's the Scouting the Refs podcast.
Nicely done.
Read more at scoutingtherefs.com. Follow Scouting the Refs on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Email the show at heyref@scoutingtherefs.com.
You're good, Michael.
Subscribe, share, and keep those sticks down.